What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tru Element 78 in the building with
your one and only reigning defending Mondo Lucha Hall of Famer, the X-Man, Xavier Mustafa.
And everybody's favorite narcissist, the natural Chris Black.
And this is another special edition of the Saturday Night Slamcasters for you guys. Today, we are here to discuss the biggest interview, I guess, in wrestling in a while. A almost 3-hour sit down between Joe Rogan and the dead man himself, Mark Calloway, otherwise known as the Undertaker. This has been the talk of the wrestling community ever since it's dropped. I believe it dropped on Inauguration Day or the following day last week. So it was the 6th, not the 6th, the 20th or the 21st. Honestly, I was a Joe Rogan Experience listener, or should I say viewer, when he was over on YouTube. But once he made the switch over to Spotify, I, like a lot of people, I'm sure, hadn't really checked out the Joe Rogan podcast, even though I had the Spotify app and everything. It's an app that I don't use anymore. I'm a YouTube music subscriber, or Google Play as it used to be known. What about you guys? Were you guys Joe Rogan listeners prior to the switch, and did you follow him over to Spotify, or was it all? Is this what
I've listened to him? I've listened to him before, mostly when he talks about conspiracy stuff, because that's what I'm into. I don't know about you. I'm always on Spotify. Spotify for me has replaced Pandora. Any other music, I go to Spotify for my music. So I like the fact that they had the video for the podcast. I've seen other podcasts on Spotify, but I haven't seen any with video. So that was nice. It was a good, nice little added.
I never really listened to Joe Rogan's podcast. I would listen to clips if there was something like good on it, but just those clips because YouTube was good for
that. Yeah, I used to be a Spotify subscriber back in the day when I was in the gym and everything like that. I'm still in the gym, but then I became a YouTube music guy because with YouTube music, you get the YouTube premium, so no commercials on YouTube, and you get all the music, and you can actually upload your own private library to it. So that's what I had been using. So like I said, I never submitted. So I'm actually shocked you got an iPhone that you don't use Apple Music over there, or as a Cobra Kai viewer when it was on YouTube that you didn't have the Google Music.
No, I'm good with Spotify.
You're old man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I'm actually going to be interested to see if they got a bump in listeners, or at least people who downloaded the Joe Rogan app, because I think ever since he's moved to Texas, and due to coronavirus, he hadn't been really having on major guests. He's been having on a lot of people who reside in Texas and people who he's had on before. So, this was, as far as I know, since he moved over to Spotify, one of the first times he's interviewed somebody that he hadn't sat down with before. So I'm interested to see if the wrestling community came through and increased the numbers over there, because since he's going exclusive, I know his numbers are down, but it doesn't really matter because he got like that $500 million contract or whatever it was to freaking move over to Spotify. So anyway, we're not here to discuss Joe Rogan. We're here to discuss The Undertaker. And so we all listened to it. And in general, I'll just throw it out there to you guys. What were your takeaways from the interview? For those of you who have supported the Saturday Night Slamcasters for a while, or before listening to this, maybe you explored our page. You know that we did review Tales from the Dead Man, which was a WWE produced series where they had The Undertaker sit down, I should say, and just discuss his career. And it was either 6 or 7 episodes that they did of that. And so we got a lot of insight into The Undertaker. But I feel this was the first time that we had The Undertaker sit down that wasn't necessarily a controlled WWE environment where he could speak and kind of more be himself. And he did unveil some things that I'm sure I'm not even going to say that I can say for sure got him in a lot of heat with WWE and a lot of the talent, and we're going to discuss those things.
What it is.
Yeah, so, but what were your takeaways from this sit down with Joe Rogan versus what we reviewed earlier last year?
Undertaker's kind of an asshole. It's just part of
elaborate on that.
Part of it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I'm pretty sure you're going to be breaking this down segment by segment. So when we get to that segment, well, I'll talk about how he's kind of an asshole. But other than that, other takeaway, I like hearing about how he kind of got started in the business because we kind of heard rumors about how he got started in the business. Like, I've never heard Paul Heyman's name dropped. Never heard that name dropped before. I've always heard Bruce Pritchard. I've never heard Paul Heyman before. And it's kind of funny that that would happen. And I guess, Paul Heyman wouldn't want to take credit for it. But
yeah, when I first listened to, before I listened to the interview, people were basically ranting and raving about the interview. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was a good interview, but I didn't think it was like extremely, I don't know, insightful, I guess the word is. Like I said, like you, I really did enjoy him talking about how he got his start in the business. And I really like hearing when people from the old days talk about the old school, how you got into the business. They basically tested you and how hard it was to make a name for yourself and the things he had to go through. Like I said, we're going to break it down. But, man, I did learn some things about him. I didn't like all that UFC talk. I understand that's something that he's interested in, but I kind of tuned out during that portion of the interview because, I don't know, I'll watch a fight here and there, but I'm not an avid UFC watcher, so I'm not going to know all the names. I'm not going to know the specific fights that they were talking about. I'm familiar with the whole Brock Lesnar incident that he had, and he said he went there basically to promote a match. But I don't know. Overall, long interview, but it was a good interview, minus the UFC part for me. But I did enjoy the stories. Undertaker normally has a lot of good stories to tell. Trying to think. Yeah, basically.
it was decent, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this is the greatest interview ever.
Right.
And I was like, I think people are overreacting to this a little bit. I think they were overhyping it a little bit.
No, they're too sensitive. Like, so what? The Undertaker called out some of the boys now being kind of soft. I mean, we can get into that later, but it's just like, you look back in the 80s, maybe even in the 90s. We've talked about this on our show ourselves of how back then, I mean, these guys were studs. They partied hard, they lived like rock stars, and now, not to disrespect any of my brothers out there, but
all right, let's talk about it now. Forget it. We're just taking over the show today. Tru Element can just get on a train in the back. We'll take this from here. So that was the part I was talking about that kind of pissed me off. Like when Undertaker was talking about they need to trade in the Swiss blades for the video games or something like that. I'm like, wait a minute, bro. Hold on. Back in your heyday, motherfuckers was strung out on pills, cocaine, all kind of stuff. You mean to tell me you got a problem that people, instead of doing drugs, are playing video games? Come on, bro.
But he explained that. He said, if it wasn't for them taking away the weed, they wouldn't have been I don't know about all of them, but they wouldn't have been strung out on like the pills and stuff like that because, we will relax you. You get all amped up during the show, you need to come down afterwards.
There would have been a couple of them, though. Because come on now. Ric Flair, way past weed.
I mean, Mustafa, let me ask you, though. I mean, I know you're a gamer and everything, but I would probably prefer the locker room back there. Guys were back there playing cards, smoking cigars, hanging out. I'm not much of a drinker, but, drinking, having a beer or whatever. Would you like to go into a locker room? I mean, again, maybe because you're a gamer. Would you like to go into a locker room during a wrestling show and have a bunch of folks playing video games? I don't think I'd be down for that.
I'd rather do that than somebody high and strung off of cocaine trying to pick up over my head and then wrestle with me and stuff like that.
All right, I had to step away for a second, and I come back, and you guys are talking about cocaine. So this is definitely a Saturday Night Slamcasters episode.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't hijack the show. It was like, all right. No, we're talking about the Undertaker's comment about people playing video games, stuff like that. My argument is, I'd rather have people playing video games than being strung out on pills and drugs and steroids and dying left and right.
Well, even Undertaker said that.
And have fun and be cool. Then hey, there's no problem with that.
Yeah, I think even Undertaker said that it was a bad situation when they had people dying young and everything like that. What I kind of took from what he was saying was just, and I've experienced this because I'm kind of a Neanderthal. I'm a younger guy, but I'm an older guy in some ways. That I've had some friends who are just really overly sensitive. Like for me growing up, man stuff, obviously like he was talking about some crazy stuff with the knives and the guns and the duffel bags and everything like that. But one of the things I've noticed that's kind of going away, and maybe it's for the best, maybe not, I don't know. But I'm still one of those guys. I sit back, we talk shit. We rib each other and different things like that. And a lot of people nowadays are just overly sensitive to that. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to, like you're always walking on pins and needles, and then people get in their feelings and get in their chest really quick. I think that his whole comments about them being soft and everything had more to do with that they're just sitting back. Everybody's all buddy and friendly. There's no competition. Like to me, men shit is that competitive edge, that like talking shit. Yo, I'm a bust your ass in this or do all that instead of being like, yeah, go, you can do it. Gee golly, we're all in this together.
I think that the environment still got to be still competitive, but to be fair, Undertaker's talking about his experience lately in the WWE, and we all know in the WWE, no one is allowed to really get over if the office don't want you to. So I don't know. I can kind of see like the competition probably isn't as strong as it used to be because everyone was trying to get themselves over. WWE's not really allow that anymore, so that element is kind of gone.
I would say I know a lot of people got a problem, especially in NXT, because NXT is one of those places where everybody's like, hey, let's do this together. Like, granted, yes, we are all going to go out there and we're working for ourselves individually, but let's go out there and have the best matches we can, and let's bring this whole company up as a whole. Instead of, let me do what the fuck I want to do, fuck everybody else, and I'm just going to go over there and be over and worry about myself. So that's a big difference between 90s and now,
Yeah, you guys are kind of in the middle of that whole transition that Undertaker was talking about of the locker room, being in the industry for 15 years. You guys were the young guys when there were all those, how do you call them, crusty old men in the locker room when it was kind of transitioning.
Grizzled veterans.
Yeah, and they were handing you guys the reins. And Xavier, Mustafa, I know that on this podcast and in private, I hope I can say that you've complained about some of the younger talent and the way that they kind of act in the locker room and conduct and carry themselves versus how you were trained versus what you came into. So you got to kind of agree a little bit with what Undertaker was saying. Like, I'm pretty sure when you guys came in, the way that you guys were trained to conduct yourselves in the locker room, the discussions that happened in the locker room were a lot different than what's going on. Obviously, WWE is a much different beast, but I'm pretty sure those same guys that are on the independents were the guys that were coming into the WWE and having those experiences. So,
case in point, that thing that Leo Rush had a problem with the whole, taking of the water bottles and helping unload the bags and stuff like that, that would have been unheard of, 20 years ago or whatever. But me and Mustafa, we've talked about in private and probably on this podcast how a lot of the younger guys now, they come in, they're kind of, I don't want to say coddled, but they come in kind of feeling entitled. Like when we broke in, we had to earn every single win that we could. We had to earn our spot. We had to deserve that spot on the show. We never went in thinking that we deserve this title, we deserve this title shot, or we deserve this main event. No, we work hard so that we can get in that spot. Nowadays, some of these young guys, they're in the business, for a cup of coffee, and then they're, how come I'm not, I need a push. What have you done to earn a push? So I can understand what he means, like, in that sense, being soft. I think they didn't have to go through, what do they call it? Like when you're at I'm lost for words. When you're in a fraternity, you kind of hazing. They don't have to go through all the hazing that we did, where the veterans, they kind of, they wanted to test your toughness a little bit. Maybe we're at fault for not continuing that, because now we have a bunch of people that are entitled. I mean, we were kind of put in our place right away. My first day in training, I was told, keep your mouth shut and your ears open. And I kept that with me for a while. I didn't want to go out and start stating my opinions about how I think shit should run. No, I sat back, I listened, I gained some knowledge from the guys that were in the business, and I have respect for the veterans.
I think the term you're looking for is whiny bitch. That's the wrestler that has emerged in this century, and the problem I have with those people is kind of like you're saying, like, they feel entitled. They feel just because they paid a couple grand or whatever that they should be able to do what they want. They should hold titles just because they hold titles. I had somebody come and tell me that they had a problem with something I said to them a year and a half ago. What the fuck did I say a year and a half to you ago? But whatever it was, I hope you listened to it, and I'm pretty sure it was probably some good advice. But that's fine. You want to have sand in your vagina about it? All right, fine. Have sand in your vagina about it. I'm over it. I'm not kissing nobody's ass. You work for me or you don't.
Good old granular vaginitis.
Exactly. But see, now you got these. I was gonna say bitches. Now you got these bitches that come in the wrestling business. Like I said, they pay their couple of grand. They don't get the push that they want because they're not ready, because they're not coming and learning, because they already think they're better than everybody when they're not. Then they start running their own promotion.
Oh, Lord. Good Lord.
There's a motherfucker right now, I ain't gonna say no names, they're starting to run a wrestling promotion in the northern Illinois area, and they don't know what the fuck they doing. They're the shits in the ring. How are you gonna direct somebody when you're terrible?
Go ahead and drop the name. It's just us three here.
I can't even think of their name on top of my head. But he's not good.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't want to say he's a good guy. I mean, he's a good guy, but no.
Don't know shit about running.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also,
Undertaker saying something about that. All right, but I don't know.
and then also, kind of one of the things that he said was about, what he commented on is how they all aged out at the same time. Him, Stone Cold, The Rock, and everything, and he hung in there. But he's like, and that really sucks for the industry because it left a lot of young guys to learn from other young guys. And I know you've had that discussion also with us about, like, pretty much everybody that you work with has been wrestling for about the same amount of time.
I kind of blame them a little bit for that because there were wrestlers that came up after they started. So there were some wrestlers that was transitioning after they left.
You're talking about WWE. You're talking about WWE, correct?
Yeah, WWE. Like, for instance, okay, so yeah, you had The Rock and you had the Stone Cold and all those that were on top, but unfortunately, they were bearing the shit out of the, Crash Hollies and Bob Hollies. I'm trying to think of who else. I don't know, they were burying the shit out of everybody else. So nobody got to learn anything because everybody was trying to protect their spots and made sure they buried anybody. And so by the time they left, they had to start from the beginning again. And luckily, the only person that, well, I don't say luckily, but you only had John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton. That were probably the only three that were able to rise up from that point.
And really, you got to think at that time, really the only ones who really got any knowledge passed on to them, and only one of those guys is still wrestling. And it was one of the best things they did. And we'll get to Undertaker giving Triple H some props about the NXT product. But it all revolved at that time during that transition period, because everybody was aging out. Who was left? It was the Undertaker, and it was Triple H. And Triple H did have the genius idea of taking the young guys and making a little group known as Evolution. And he took Batista and he took Randy Orton under his wing. And then they had the legendary Ric Flair in the group, and they had Triple H in the group. And the only person who's still there is Randy Orton, who's currently doing some of the best work of his career. So, like, they haven't had, because of their resentment of factions. I think that also hurt, because you had a bunch of guys who literally were just without managers, without cliques, and without factions and everything like that. The young guys didn't have the older talent to really work with and kind of manage and mold them outside of the ring as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Once again, people are finally coming around. I used to hate when people used to shit on Triple H because they're like, "Oh, well, he's just burying people, blah blah blah." He's got a mind for the business, and I'm glad that he's finally getting recognized for that. Like I said, he's the one who helped Batista, Randy Orton under his wing because he wanted a group. And we all listened to the Evolution show that was on with the Ruthless Aggression series when they tried to put someone else in Randy Orton's place, and Triple H's like, "Nah, he don't fit." He didn't see anything in that guy. So you got to give the dude props. Stop shitting on Triple H.
Hell, we actually, you know what?
Triple H was burying folks.
But you want
Stop it.
But you want
he buried who'd he bury? He buried fucking Goldberg and Scott Steiner.
Batista. I mean, not Batista. Booker T.
Booker
T.
Okay, I'll give you Booker T.
But he did his share of burial. But he helped some people out at the same time. Like he wanted to make sure he could sleep most nights.
But actually, kind of what we're talking about. How I was just talking about like the factions and the older guys. Like, okay. Just several months ago, we had a group of people that were not getting over. They weren't doing anything. They were all in bullshit storylines. What they do, they brought in a veteran named MVP, who has elevated every single guy in his group. They are the new Evolution. Like, you got MVP, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and Cedric Alexander. So Cedric Alexander is like the Randy Orton of the group. MVP is the Ric Flair of the group. Bobby Lashley, I guess, because of all his accolades, you can kind of say that he's the Triple H of the group, and he's they call him the CEO, so he is like the second in charge. And Batista would be Shelton Benjamin. So, and you just see how aligning your younger talent can elevate everybody involved. Versus on the other side, you have another group, which is all young guys who haven't had a lot of exposure, and you're expecting for them to get over and kind of learn the business. And they go by the name of I don't remember the name of them. Retribution. It doesn't work.
Well, okay. Well, Mustafa Ali's been around for a while, but he hasn't been mainstream. But he's got the veteran sense.
It's
Mustafa Ali. Oh, excuse me. Mustafa.
I was like, what?
So
he must have got your text message.
So I did like what do you think about Undertaker's comments? I'll actually read the quote here, because he gave props to Triple H, and he said the Performance Center is helping. We got Triple H who's trying to get some of the toothpaste back in the tube, take a step back to move forward to try to get the product more of an edge. and he said he thinks that's what's missing, because in the same interview he talked about how it's just too much purdy. He's like, besides the video games, he said you got people back there just more concerned about looking pretty than actually going out there and having an edge and putting on putting on a show for the people. So we've kind of discussed it, but what are your thoughts in comparison of what Triple H is presenting in NXT versus what's being presented on the main roster? And do you think that the locker room is probably a lot different in NXT than it is on the main roster?
Well, there's an obvious difference between the two locker rooms, because you got guys in NXT that's just saying, I don't want to go up to the main roster. I mean, for a number of reasons, probably because the camaraderie amongst all the guys and girls down there in NXT, but also NXT is like the last actual pro wrestling that exists in WWE. WWE has become just so sports entertainment and not pro wrestling that it's become unwatchable. I mean, it really has. It has nothing to do with the booking, whatever. The presentation alone, I'm not going to try to go one show without saying New Japan, but the presentation alone with WWE, again, it is like a variety show. They have talking segments. They have too many backstage skits, just way too much bullshit and less wrestling. NXT is more wrestling based. Sure, do they have their backstage skits? Yeah, they do. But not to the point where, again, it seems like you're watching wrestling Broadway. So there's a huge difference. I'm pretty sure the mood backstage at NXT, well, maybe up until they were kind of shoved into the Wednesday Night Wars with AEW, I think that NXT probably was hurt more so than it was helped with being put head to head against another show. Not to say that the talent, can't rise up to the challenge. It's just when you have a mainstream audience now, suddenly Vince McMahon wants to put his hands all over the product, and we see what has happened. You get the guys and the girls that come up from the NXT to the main roster, like a Shayna Baszler, like a Matt Riddle, people who are just not doing anything of value to the show. And they were major players down there. So there's a huge difference between the two locker rooms.
I don't know. I don't think I have anything to add, really.
Well, I know one point I wanted to bring up. Now, I say that I kind of like the old methods, but when the Undertaker talked about how he first broke in, going into the guys, whatever, farm, yard, whatever, where he went to go train, and the guys basically just wanted to take your money and try to run you off. Like that, I don't like. I don't like shitty promoters like that who wants to just take some guy's money and not really teach them anything. And at the end of which you feel like you've been cheated. I don't like that aspect of the business, and I hope it dies a very quick death. But you kind of separate the men from the boys when you do that, though. You kind of see who really, really wants to be there. So I can knock their methods, but as far as weeding out the people that will stay and the people who really love the business, so there needs to be a healthy medium where you can still test who really wants to be there and who is going to wash out, and you don't want to waste your time trying to develop these people. So because Mustafa, you can agree, we've seen a lot of guys just didn't have the heart. They didn't have the drive. So I don't agree with them running guys off or, having them do 1,000 squats before they get in the ring or whatever. But to a certain extent, you have to protect the business, especially back then. Just any Tom, Dick, and Harry into the business, teach them the secrets so they can go blabbing to the rest of the world about, the wrestling's work. So I don't know. What do you think, Mustafa? You feel the same way?
I like it when the approach is that way. Granted, you ain't got to overdo it. Like, don't be taking the people money. But you know what I'm saying? Let's say the first half of your lessons, is them people getting stretched and them people doing squats to their puke and all that stuff. I like that part because, again, like you said, it's going to separate the men from the boys. That's how wrestling was kept sacred back in the day, because you didn't learn it was a work to the very end. You know what I'm saying? So they would legitly punch you in the face. If you want to do it, you do it. Then you learn that you really don't punch them in the face. Nowadays, since everybody's upfront about it now, you got all these dime a dozen training facilities and trainers popping up that's pumping out these shitty entitled wrestlers because nobody gives a damn anymore.
Yeah.
I think that should come back a little bit. Like you said, people being coddled too much.
So just stretch them and do all that and be like, all right, if you can take the pain, you can take.
Well, I mean, even the Undertaker said that, when he discussed about how it was coming up, how it was rough for him, you hear stories like Stone Cold saying that he, would buy a bag of potatoes and basically cut them and eat them, and that's how he survived. They slept in their cars. They had it rough back then. But the Undertaker was saying, you talk to some of these kids now in NXT where they get a contract to train, and they still will probably talk about how rough they got it. He's just like, no, brother, you ain't got it as rough as they used to.
Yeah, I think we talked about how the Performance Center has been one of the best and worst things for wrestling in general, because you got a bunch of people who maybe have 2 weeks under their belt that somehow can make it into the Performance Center, or if they just have the look like a Braun Strowman, and we'll touch on the discussion about that, they can just go down to Florida and get signed to a WWE contract to train how to wrestle, but they haven't been anywhere, so everybody's learning the exact same thing. And even when they hire people who have been around for a while, putting them in the Performance Center for years and years and years so they can learn the WWE style, which there shouldn't be a WWE style. That's one of the things that made wrestling so interesting back in the day, where you had journeymen who would come in with all these different types of styles. Now everybody throws the same punch. Everybody throws the same kick. Everybody does the same. It's taken away a lot of the uniqueness of a lot of the people and a lot of the wrestlers.
Well, I think that used to be the thing with NXT. Now, when they brought in all these, independent stars who are kind of journeymen, that they're NXT people that only have trained in NXT, they're finally being able to work with a bunch of guys that have other experiences elsewhere. I think that's beneficial, but maybe it's too early to tell whether it's going to be, really helpful.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they start there, they finish there, and they don't get to evolve by going down to a Mexico or over to a Japan and just experiencing different paces, different styles, like strong style.
Or like Japan.
There's a reason Shinsuke is no longer the king of strong style on the main roster. He became an artist formerly known as the king of strong style, because those WWE talents would not be able to handle what he was throwing at them. And it was also a reason that when he was down in NXT, they would only put him in the ring with certain people. I think Shinsuke had like a circle of like 5 people he actually wrestled in NXT before coming up to the main roster.
I still rave about his debut match against Sami Zayn. That was probably some of the best work Shinsuke put in.
And Sami Zayn.
True that. I know you say that they had no one that can really, work with them. No, they have those guys. They just don't want to give them no shine.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that there was like a circle of 5 people around Shinsuke that were willing to work with him. You had like Samoa Joe, you had Sami Zayn. But again, these are people who have traveled the world before coming to WWE. You're not going to put Shinsuke Nakamura in there to have a great match with Braun Strowman or a who else is a man that's only come up through the NXT system.
Hold on. So here's a guy that's probably straight WWE, but is a good worker. What about a Bray Wyatt? Or because he wasn't a journeyman before, was he?
But he's also legacy.
Yeah, but still.
I don't think he was.
So he's a WWE. He's a product of the WWE.
He's a product of the WWE, but still, he still had somebody who he could work with, train with, and talk to that had been other places besides WWE.
Right. Well, maybe that's why he's got a leg up on the whole psychology bit.
Yeah, because in the ring, he also doesn't really do much in the ring.
He doesn't need to either.
Yeah,
he knows how to work. Shit.
Does he?
Yeah. Shit.
But
besides how they present the Fiend up, recently or whatever, I mean, I enjoy his work in the ring.
Yeah, I think that's also kind of one of the reasons that one of the biggest stars that was coming up through the ranks and, that's been derailed has been Velveteen Dream, because his character was so much different and his selling was so much different from everybody. It set him apart from everybody else in NXT that hadn't been out on the road like a Johnny Gargano or Tommaso Ciampa and guys like that.
Right.
Yeah. Which is also why you kind of see WWE now are keeping people in the performance center more, and they're putting the guys from the independents directly into NXT. Like Karrion Kross didn't spend a lot of time in the performance center. They pretty much just stuck him right in NXT from Impact and all that.
Where he doesn't belong, but anyway.
You said he doesn't belong in NXT?
NXT. He don't belong in NXT. Bring that man up. Stop fucking around. Stop wasting time.
One of the things Undertaker talked about, which I was kind of shocked that he talked about so openly, was the use of steroids in wrestling. And I like Joe Rogan's response that, shoot, if I ran the company, I'd be encouraging guys to take steroids. But like we said,
Vince McMahon isn't human.
Yeah, but it was kind of funny to me because when Undertaker was like, yeah, when I was on steroids, and I was like, when the fuck was the Undertaker on steroids? Because he was never a swole guy to me. Like, you think about.
Well, he said that.
Yeah,
he said that even when he, was juicing, he just didn't get that, pumped up jacked look.
He didn't have the right doctor.
He said, everyone, you just had to take steroids just to be regular, like Roddy Piper. I'm like, Piper took steroids? What the fuck? But I guess
Piper did take steroids. Like, you gotta go back and look at Piper, bro. You gotta look when he was on the juice and off the juice. He was like half the size when he got off the juice. Piper was huge. Like, because I had actually heard about Piper and I went to go look and I was like, I had the same thought as you, like Roddy Piper was on steroids, and then it was like before and after. I was like, oh yeah, Roddy was.
Shit, you would think that like 80s WWE, that was probably like, an unspoken requirement to be on the juice, just because everyone, like I said, you're supposed to be larger than life. You have to look the part.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny when he kind of had to I'm not going to say necessarily cover for Braun Strowman, but when Joe was kind of like insinuating, like, look at this guy. This guy's big as shit. Like, he's got to be on the juice. And he's like, I don't know what he does, but he's a power lifter. Or whatever.
You don't want to catch that kind of heat.
The good thing they didn't pull up Bobby Lashley.
No, what's going to get him in trouble is him talking about how they do their testing.
Yeah, that's the main reason. That's the thing I wanted to talk about.
Oh, man.
So Undertaker broke down the WWE testing policy, which had been speculated on for years and years. I don't think anything was ever like confirmed or substantiated, I should say. And it's all supposed to be random. But what he pretty much discussed was that you have to do 4 tests a year. They're supposed to be random. And he said, like, a guy like him who's not competing or whatever, active throughout the year, since he's not on the road, they don't really think about him. And so he'd be sitting at home all year, and then come December 27th or something, he'll get a phone call like, hey, have you been tested yet? And he'd be like, no, I haven't. And they're like, all right, well, you need to go get tested. And the requirement is 4 tests a year, and he hasn't been tested all year. So he's like, he'll get that call. Then the next day he'll get another call. So between December 27th and December 31st, he'll get all 4 tests put in, which is kind of an issue. That you could have somebody like that. But me, I'm not one of those people who are against steroid use, especially in professional wrestling. Like I think that we've come a long way in the research of those type of things, that there's a way to use HGH and all these other types of things and be monitored and taken care of. And a lot of those guys are already on TRT treatment anyway, which is testosterone replacement therapy, which is people will argue if that's a form of steroids. It does give you a boost as far as being able to retain and grow muscle. But I wouldn't really necessarily call it like an anabolic steroid in the sense that most people would think. I think it should be a requirement for a lot of the wrestlers. Like nobody's forcing you to do it. It's your choice. And it's not going to improve your mic skills, and it's not going to improve your work in the ring. All it's going to do is improve your look. And in today's world where people actually care about work rate and storyline and all that different type of stuff, just looking big isn't going to get you over. So I'm not going to say I would necessarily discourage it or encourage it, but I think it should be permissible, at least in professional wrestling. I'll leave it at professional wrestling for now.
I got mixed feelings about that. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, if you're responsible with it, I mean, obviously there's guys that know how to use it, know how to cycle on and off of it, and not abuse it. The problem is, it's a liability for the guys that may possibly abuse it. Like, but I agree with what you said. Just because you're big doesn't mean you're going to get over. However, when you get a guy like Vince McMahon who wants to push people to the moon just because they're jacked and they can't do jack shit in the ring, that's going to be a little discouraging.
Well, we've had big guys like Heidenreich who they were trying to push and different things like that, and they did,
and they shit the bed.
Yeah, and they didn't get over. Like Vince McMahon, at the end of the day, is all about money. Vince McMahon, he'll push somebody if they're big or whatever, but if he sees they're not bringing in money, then he's gonna step back from it. And we're in the final days of Vince McMahon anyway, so
yeah. Yeah, especially the move that they made the other day. I see Vince McMahon go. I think he's going to take a step back within the next year.
I don't think he's going to take a step back because, like Undertaker said, his life is bodybuilding and WWE.
No, I mean he's gonna. Anyway, that's a discussion that we can table for another time.
I think is Xavier Mustafa still around?
Oh,
oh, okay. Thoughts?
I covered everything, so I'm good.
You don't got nothing to say about the use.
You wouldn't.
Would you
wouldn't recommend that some of the legacy guys go ahead and get on them roids?
Oh. Any point I was gonna make when y'all made it, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just shut up.
You gotta have some type of thought though. Like, do you think that the policy, like, should it be quarterly based? Should they just keep it at the 4 times a year? Because I feel like, honestly, if they're going to have a real wellness policy, a respected wellness policy, it should be each quarter you know that you're going to have a test. You don't know when that test is going to happen, but it should never be that, oh, it's just 4 tests throughout the year and you got these guys who aren't competing all year. Wow, we are having a lot of technical difficulties, so apologies for wherever that cut off for you guys, but we're going to keep the show going, and we're going to hop right back in there. So, Xavier Mustafa, what were your thoughts? I know I was saying something when it cut off, but I don't remember where I was headed. So
you're talking about the Undertaker and 4 times drug test and all that other stuff. I mean, the issue there was he was a full-time contracted employee, even though he was only wrestling once or twice a year. But the way they limited that is, you know, you got everybody that are part-timers on the part-time contracts. They don't have to get tested at all, which is why certain people, they ain't going to say no names, they can do whatever steroids they want. They never, ever have to worry about being tested.
Something must be going on in Milwaukee because my internet just went out.
yeah, I saw that you were frozen. So, like I said, we got a lot of technical difficulties going on. I don't know if it has to do with the snowstorm that we got going on. I'm thinking that that's probably what it is. So apologies to everybody out there. We're 40 minutes in, so I'm not starting over. Xavier Mustafa, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
There must be something in Milwaukee because my internet just went out too.
Yeah, Xavier Mustafa got the good shit over there.
Obviously.
Yeah, Maybe we should start wrapping this up.
Yeah, yeah. So the interview was eye opening. He talked about a lot of his injuries. It was kind of funny when he talked about his orbital socket being broken when he had to be the Phantom of the Undertaker, and it was funny because he didn't name who broke his orbital socket, but the first time in his left eye, but he did name drop Rey Mysterio for breaking his nose and his right eye's orbital socket. But the injury in 1995 when he had to wear the mask, anybody who's into professional wrestling knows that. And also, I guess he probably didn't name it because he was just talking about how the guy was out of shape and probably shouldn't have been in the ring and was blown up and everything. He was talking about Mabel, a.k.a. Viscera. So.
Yep. He was known to be sloppy and careless and reckless. He was the original Reckless Rollins.
Would you rather wrestle Mabel or Nia Jax?
Mabel. Mabel was way more reckless than Nia Jax.
No, I said, who would you rather have wrestled?
Huh? Who's the better wrestler?
No, I said, who would you have rather wrestled? Would it have been Mabel or
Oh,
Nia Jax?
shit. No, I thought you said who hurt more people. Shit. I'd rather wrestle Nia Jax. Shit. I ain't getting no ring with Mabel. Shit. Rest in peace, brother.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up. Like I said, we've been having a lot of technical difficulties. We've been trying to drop this episode for you guys since Saturday. So we're recording this on Tuesday, the 26th, RIP to, and in remembrance of the Black Mamba, Kobe, and his daughter, Gigi, who passed away on this day. So other than that, I'll let you guys make your church announcements if you got any. I know we got the Legacy Pro show coming up, so go ahead and drop that.
Legacy Pro will be returning to the Root River Center on February 6th. Tickets are $20. You get them at legacyprowi.com or facebook.com/legacyprowi.com. Not .com, /WI.
All right, well, go ahead and drop your social medias.
Catch me at Xavier Mustafa on Facebook and on Twitter.
You can catch me at The Natural Chris Black on Instagram and Facebook, and at _natural_CB on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Natural Chris Black, as well as the Slamcasters.
And obviously, you're here on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you're notified when new episodes go up. We're going to be dropping our wrestling film, not necessarily films about wrestling, but films that star wrestlers or have something to do with wrestling. That's going to be dropping for you guys this year. We got Dark Side of the Ring Season 3 that's going to be coming up. And we're also going to be reviewing some of the worst pay-per-views of all time. All that's going to be dropping this year, so you don't want to miss any of that, as well as our Royal Rumble predictions, which will be dropping later this week for you guys. So that's my favorite pay-per-view of the year. I know Xavier Mustafa wishes he could go. He was trying to start the annual trek out to the Royal Rumble. So hopefully we get that going for again next year. And other than that, you catch me at Slamcaster TE78 over on Twitter. And you can also find us over on Facebook at Saturday Night Slamcasters. And be sure to check out our Slamcaster Slam board over on Facebook as well, where there's a lot of group discussions and we got a lot of things going on over there. But other than that, we up out of here. Holla at your boys. Come get slammed. Peace.